Lyra's hands trembled as she hauled the waste barrel through the back door of the frostbitten Pax kitchen, her thin coat doing nothing against the wind that cut through the fabric like claws. The other Omegas had already retreated inside, leaving her, the weakest, the most expendable, to finish the task alone. The blizzard screamed through the pines as she trudged toward the dump site. Years of servitude had taught her to keep her head down, to be invisible, to survive by being nothing. Her dark hair whipped across her face, but she pushed forward. Just dump the barrel and return. Then she heard it, a sound so faint she almost convinced herself it was the wind. A cry. Fragile and desperate. Every instinct told her to ignore it, but her feet moved toward the sound before her mind could stop them. There, half buried in a snowdrift beneath a skeletal oak, lay a white bundle. Lyra dropped to her knees, frantically brushing away the ice. The cloth fell open to reveal an infant. Blue-lipped, barely breathing. Without thinking, Lyra pulled the baby against her chest, tucking the child inside her coat to share what little warmth her body could offer. Then agony exploded across her forearm. Fire seared through her flesh as geometric patterns burned themselves into existence, swirling circles of gold and blue that glowed like captured starlight. The mate mark of the Alpha King. Lyra's vision swam. The moon goddess didn't choose Omegas for kings. Yet the mark blazed brighter, undeniable proof that fate had bound the lowest wolf in the realm to stand beside the highest. A branch snapped in the darkness. Two crimson eyes watched from the shadows. Lyra couldn't tear her gaze from the mark burning on her arm, even as the crimson eyes in the darkness drew closer. The geometric patterns pulsed with each frantic beat of her heart, casting blue-gold light across the snow. The baby whimpered against her chest, and that small sound shattered her trance. The wolf emerged from the tree line. It was massive, far larger than any wolf she'd ever seen, with fur as black as the spaces between stars. Its red eyes burned with an intelligence that made her blood freeze. This wasn't a mindless beast. This was something that understood exactly what it was hunting. Lyra stumbled backward, her boots sliding on ice. The wolf's lips peeled back from teeth that gleamed like daggers in the moonlight. A growl rumbled from its chest, so deep she felt it vibrate through the frozen ground. She should run. She should scream. But her arms only tightened around the infant, her body curving to shield the child even as her mind screamed that they were both about to die. The wolf crouched, muscles coiling to spring. Then torches exploded to life around her. Protect the marked one! Armed wolves in silver armor materialized from the trees, forming a barrier between her and the red-eyed beast. The creature snarled, hackles rising, but retreated a step as more warriors emerged from the storm. There had to be 24 of them, all moving with the lethal precision of the king's elite guard. At their center strode a figure that commanded attention like gravity itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair dusted with snow and eyes that glowed molten gold. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy. Alpha King Ronan. Lyra's legs nearly gave out. She'd never seen him before. Omegas like her didn't attend pack gatherings or ceremonies, but there was no mistaking who he was. The other wolves parted for him like water, their heads bowed in deference. His gaze locked onto her arm, onto the mark that branded her as his. One of the guards followed his king's stare and gasped. The warrior dropped to one knee in the snow. Then another guard knelt. And another. Until every member of the elite patrol bowed before her, a worthless Omega still clutching a stranger's child. Impossible, someone whispered. Ronan moved closer, his boots crunching through the snow. The red-eyed wolf had vanished back into the darkness, but Lyra barely noticed. Every instinct screamed at her to lower her eyes, to grovel, to apologize for existing in his presence. Instead, she found herself frozen, staring up at him as he stopped just feet away. His expression was unreadable, carved from stone and shadow. "Show me your arm," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Lyra's body moved before her mind could process the order, extending her trembling forearm. The mark blazed brighter under his scrutiny, the geometric pattern shifting and swirling as if alive. Ronan's jaw tightened. And the child? Lyra's arms refused to obey. Every survival instinct she'd honed over years of abuse screamed at her to protect the infant, even as logic told her she was defying the most powerful wolf in the realm. Her body curved protectively around the baby, her intense blue eyes meeting his gold ones for the first time. Something slammed into her chest, not physical, but devastating all the same. The world tilted. Her breath caught. The mate bond snapped into place with such force that her knees buckled, and suddenly she understood why wolves spoke of it in reverent whispers. This wasn't mere attraction. This was recognition on a cellular level, her soul crying out that it had found its other half. Terrifying. This was absolutely terrifying. Ronan's expression shifted, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly. He felt it too. The bond thrummed between them like a living thing, golden threads weaving through the space that separated them. "That's my daughter," he said, his voice rougher now, strained. "Luna. She was taken 3 days ago." The words penetrated Lyra's panic. She looked down at the infant in her arms, at the delicate features, the shock of dark hair. The baby had stopped shivering, her tiny chest rising and falling with steady breaths now that she was warm. "You saved her." Ronan took another step closer, and Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. "You saved my child when you could have walked away. When any sensible wolf would have." She was dying, Lyra whispered, her first words to him trembling and small. I couldn't just leave her." Something flickered across his face. Wonder, maybe. Or disbelief. His gaze raked over her, taking in her threadbare coat, her gaunt frame, the way she trembled from more than just cold. She knew what he saw. An Omega. The lowest rank. Weak. Powerless. Everything a king's mate shouldn't be. "You're an Omega." Not a question, but he seemed to be testing the words, trying to make them fit with the glowing mark on her arm. Lyra's eyes dropped to the snow. "Yes, Your Majesty. Look at me." The command in his voice made her obey before she could think. His expression had hardened into something fierce and protective. "You saved the heir to my kingdom. You bear my mark. Omega or not, you're under my protection now." He turned to his captain. "Bring her to the palace. My private wing. No one touches her. No one questions her. Anyone who tries will answer to me personally." Murmurs rippled through the guards. Lyra caught the word Omega spoken like a curse, saw the confusion and barely concealed disgust on several faces. Ronan's growl silenced them all. "She is your future queen. You will show respect." The suite Ronan had given her was larger than the entire servants' quarter she'd lived in for 18 years. Silk sheets, velvet curtains, a fireplace that actually worked. Lyra stood in the center of it all, afraid to touch anything. Afraid she'd stain it somehow just by existing. A maid had drawn her a bath. A bath. With salts that smelled like lavender and water so hot it had made her skin pink. Lyra had scrubbed until her fingers pruned, trying to wash away years of grime and shame, but she still felt dirty. Still felt like an imposter wearing someone else's life. She caught her reflection in the ornate mirror and barely recognized herself. They'd given her a nightgown of soft cream fabric, had brushed her dark hair until it shone. But underneath the finery, she was still the same worthless Omega who'd been invisible her entire life. The mark on her arm pulsed, as if reminding her it was real. That this wasn't some fever dream she'd wake from in her cold corner of the kitchen. Ronan had visited twice, once to check on Luna, who was being tended by the royal healer, and once to bring Lyra food himself. The gesture had stunned her into silence. Kings didn't serve Omegas. The natural order didn't work that way. "You need to eat," he'd said, setting the tray down with surprising gentleness. "You're too thin." She'd waited until he left to sob into the soup. Now, as night deepened and the fire burned low, Lyra curled into the massive bed that felt like sleeping on clouds. Exhaustion dragged her under almost immediately. The dream started pleasantly enough: warmth, safety, Luna's soft breathing. Then the cold crept in. Snow materialized around her feet, spreading across the luxurious room like a disease. The temperature plummeted. The red eyes appeared in the darkness beyond the window. Lyra tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The window shattered. The massive wolf poured through like smoke made solid, its black fur bristling, its teeth bared. Those crimson eyes fixed on her with hatred so pure it burned. "You don't belong here," a voice hissed, not from the wolf's mouth, but from everywhere at once. "You're nothing. You're weak. And when I'm done with the child, I'm coming for you." The wolf lunged. Lyra screamed. She woke gasping, tangled in silk sheet soaked with sweat. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The room was dark except for dying embers in the fireplace. Empty. Safe. But the window was open, curtains billowing in cold wind. And in the fresh snow on the balcony outside, massive paw prints led to the edge, then vanished into nothing. Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She'd spent the morning in the nursery watching Luna sleep, her presence barely tolerated by the royal staff. The nurses whispered when they thought she couldn't hear, words like inappropriate and temporary. They looked at her the way her old pack had, like she was a stain that needed scrubbing away. But Luna seemed to know her. The baby's tiny hand would reach for Lyra's finger, her eyes tracking the Omega's movements around the room. It made Lyra's chest ache with something fierce and protective. A new nurse entered carrying a bottle, her smile bright and professional. Time for the princess's feeding. Everything in Lyra's body went cold. She didn't know why. The woman looked perfectly normal, neat uniform, gentle hands, the same indifferent courtesy all the staff showed. But something primal deep in Lyra's gut screamed danger. "Wait," Lyra heard herself say. The nurse's smile tightened. "Excuse me. Let me." Lyra's hands trembled as she reached for the bottle. "Let me check it first. That's highly irregular. You're not qualified to. Give it to me." The command in her own voice shocked Lyra, but she didn't back down. The mark on her arm burned hot beneath her sleeve. The nurse's pleasant mask slipped. Her eyes went flat and cold. "You little Omega bitch. You're ruining everything." She lunged for Luna. Lyra moved on instinct, throwing herself between the assassin and the crib. The bottle shattered on the floor, its contents hissing as they ate through the wooden planks like acid. Poison. Meant for Luna. The nurse's hand closed around Lyra's throat, slamming her against the wall. She was supposed to die in the snow. You were supposed to freeze with her. But you just had to interfere. The door exploded inward. Ronan was fury incarnate. He crossed the room in 2 strides, ripping the assassin off Lyra and throwing her to the ground. His claws extended, his eyes blazing gold as his wolf surged to the surface. "Who sent you?" His voice was barely human. The woman spat blood. "The old ways are returning. The weak will be culled." "Your bastard daughter?" She never finished. Ronan's claws tore through her throat in one smooth motion. Silence fell, broken only by Lyra's ragged breathing. Ronan turned to her, his expression softening as he saw the bruises already forming on her neck. He pulled her into his arms, and Lyra melted against his chest, shaking. "You saved her again," he murmured into her hair. "My brave mate." "Someone inside," Lyra whispered. "The enemy is inside your court." "I know." His arms tightened around her. "And I swear on my life, I will keep you both safe." The royal healer was ancient, her silver hair cascading down her back like moonlight made tangible. She'd insisted on examining Lyra after the attack, her gnarled hands surprisingly gentle as they traced the mate mark on Lyra's arm. "Extraordinary," the old woman murmured. "I've never seen the mark glow this brightly. And your eyes." Lyra shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. "What about them?" "Look at me, child." Lyra obeyed, meeting the healer's gaze. The woman's breath caught. Blessed moon goddess. Ronan, come here. The king had been pacing near the door, his protective instincts on high alert since the nursery attack. He crossed to them immediately, his hand finding Lyra's shoulder in a gesture that was becoming familiar. Comforting. Her eyes, the healer said. That shade of blue, I've only seen it once before, in illustrations from the ancient texts. She hobbled to a shelf lined with dusty scrolls, her movements urgent despite her age. She pulled down a leather-bound tome that looked older than the palace itself, pages yellowed and fragile. Her fingers trembled as she turned them, searching. Here. She thrust the book toward Ronan. The Silver Moon Bloodline. Lyra's heart stuttered. She leaned closer, drawn despite herself. The illustration showed a woman with flowing dark hair and eyes that matched her own, that same intense, almost luminescent blue. Around her, darkness fled from waves of silver light. The Silver Moon Wolves were healers and seers, the healer explained, her voice reverent. Blessed by the moon goddess herself to banish corruption and darkness. They could purge poison, break curses, even strip dark magic from those who wielded it. They were thought to be extinct, wiped out generations ago by those who feared their power. No. Lyra shook her head, backing away from the book like it might bite her. I'm not. Your eyes don't lie, child. Neither does your mark. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. I'm weak. The words burst from Lyra like a confession. I've been beaten and starved and treated like nothing my entire life. If I had power, wouldn't I have known? Wouldn't I have been able to stop them? Ronan's hands cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. You stopped an assassin yesterday. You saved my daughter twice. You survived years of abuse and still had enough compassion left to rescue a dying infant in a blizzard. That's not weakness, Lyra. That's strength they couldn't break. But I don't feel powerful. I don't know how to. The power was dormant, the healer interrupted gently. Suppressed by trauma and malnutrition. But the mark awakened it. Your connection to the king is feeding it. Can't you feel it growing? Lyra's arm burned as if in answer, the mark pulsing with silver-blue light. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow, and 7 thrones carved from black stone formed a semicircle around a single chair meant for the accused. Lyra sat in that chair now, acutely aware of every eye judging her. The Council of Alphas represented the most powerful packs in the Northern Territories. 6 men, 1 woman, all radiating authority that made her wolf want to bare her throat in submission. Ronan stood beside his throne, his presence the only thing keeping her from bolting. An Omega. Alpha Mordain spoke first, his voice dripping with disdain. He was broad-shouldered and cruel-eyed, with silver streaking his dark beard. The moon goddess has bound our king to an Omega. Nervous laughter rippled through the observers lining the walls. She bears the mark, Ronan said, his tone brooking no argument. She saved the heir. She stopped an assassin. Her rank is irrelevant. Her rank is everything. The female alpha leaned forward, her sharp features twisted with disgust. What message does this send? That weakness is rewarded? That breeding doesn't matter. She's not even trained, another added. Can she hunt? Fight? Lead warriors into battle. Each word landed like a blow. Lyra's hands clenched in her lap, her nails biting into her palms. They were right. She was everything they said, weak, untrained, unworthy of standing beside a king. I propose we reject the bond. Mordain stood, his voice carrying the weight of false reasonableness. For the good of the realm. An Omega Queen would make us a laughingstock. Our enemies would see it as proof of our decline. The bond cannot be rejected, Ronan growled, his wolf bleeding into his voice. Then let her prove herself. Mordain's eyes glinted with something dark and calculating. Let her demonstrate this power the healer claims she possesses. Show us you're more than a cowering servant girl who got lucky." The room fell silent, all attention fixed on Lyra. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had no idea how to summon the power the healer spoke of. She'd felt nothing but fear and inadequacy since arriving at the palace. Her voice cracked. "I don't know how." "Exactly." Mordain smiled, cold and triumphant. "She's nothing. A mistake. The mark means nothing if she can't." "Enough." Lyra surged to her feet, months of suppressed rage finally breaking through. Her arm erupted with light. Blinding silver blue that filled the chamber like a second sun. The mark blazed so bright that council members threw up their hands, shielding their eyes. The light pulsed once, twice, then vanished as quickly as it came. Lyra stood trembling in the sudden darkness, as shocked as everyone else. Mordain's expression had gone carefully blank. But for just a moment, Lyra could have sworn she saw something familiar flicker in his eyes. Something red. Lyra woke screaming. Ronan was beside her in seconds, his arms wrapping around her as she clawed at the sheets, still trapped halfway between vision and reality. Her mark burned like a brand, pulsing with each frantic heartbeat. "Breathe," he commanded, his voice cutting through her panic. "Lyra, breathe. You're safe." But she wasn't. None of them were. "The solstice festival," she gasped, her fingers clutching his shirt. "Ronan, you can't go. It's a trap. They're going to." "Slow down. What did you see?" She'd fallen asleep after dinner, exhausted from the council meeting. But this hadn't been a normal dream. She'd been pulled under like drowning, submerged in visions so vivid they felt more real than the silk sheets beneath her. "I saw the great hall decorated for the festival. All the torches lit, the packs gathered." Her voice shook as the images flooded back. "You were standing at the center, giving the solstice blessing. And then the lights went out. All of them, at once." Ronan's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Wolves attacked from the shadows, at least a dozen. But they weren't trying to kill you. They were herding you. Driving you toward the eastern corridor. Tears streamed down her face. "It leads to the old armory. The one that's been closed for renovations. They've rigged it with silver chains. They're going to trap you there, Anne." Her breath hitched. She'd seen what came next. Seen Ronan bound and helpless as a massive black wolf with red eyes emerged from the darkness. Seen those terrible jaws close around his throat. "Who leads them?" His voice was deadly calm. "Mordain." The name tasted like ash on her tongue. "Alpha Mordain. He's the one who took Luna. He's the red-eyed wolf from my nightmares. He wants to return the packs to the old ways, where alphas rule through fear and the weak are culled like diseased livestock." She expected him to question her, to demand proof. Instead, Ronan cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "You're a seer," he said simply. "Like the silver moon wolves of old. Your dreams aren't dreams, are they? They're warnings." Lyra had spent days denying it, but she couldn't anymore. The visions were too specific, too vivid. The paw prints on her balcony, the nursery attack she'd sensed before it happened, her instincts had been screaming the truth all along. "I should have told you sooner," she whispered. "I thought I was going crazy. That the stress was." "You're telling me now." He pressed his forehead to hers. "And now we can stop him. What if I'm wrong? What if it's just?" "You're not wrong." His certainty anchored her. "I've suspected Mordain for weeks. This confirms it." The winter solstice festival blazed with light and warmth, the great hall packed with wolves from every corner of the northern territories. Lyra watched from the shadows near the nursery wing, her heart in her throat as Ronan stood at the center of the crowd, magnificent in his ceremonial armor. He'd prepared meticulously. Guards lined every exit. Warriors disguised as servants mingled through the crowd. The eastern corridor had been sealed off, with a full battalion waiting in the wings to spring the countertrap the moment Mordain made his move. Everything was going according to plan. That's when Lyra felt the prickle of warning race down her spine. She turned to find the nursery door ajar. Her blood turned to ice. She'd left it locked, she was certain she'd left it locked. Luna's soft cries drifted through the opening, and Lyra didn't think. She just ran. The nursery was dark except for moonlight streaming through the windows. Luna lay in her crib, fussing but unharmed. Relief flooded Lyra for precisely 2 seconds before she heard the door click shut behind her. "I knew he'd tell you." Mordain's voice slithered from the shadows. "I've been watching you, little seer. Watching your visions tear you apart. You made this almost too easy." Lyra spun, placing herself between the Alpha and Luna's crib. "The guards will. The guards are busy watching the Great Hall, waiting for an attack that will never come." He stepped into the moonlight, his smile cold and predatory. "Did you really think I didn't know about your warning?" I wanted him to prepare. I wanted him to move his pieces exactly where I needed them. While his forces are concentrated there, I'm here. With his heir. And his pathetic Omega mate. Ronan will kill you for this. Ronan will be too late. Mordain's bones began to crack and shift, his body contorting. Just like he was too late to save his first mate. Just like he'll be too late to save you. The transformation was wrong, unnatural. His body expanded, for erupting from skin that stretched and tore. But this wasn't a normal shift. This was something darker, twisted by magic or madness or both. The wolf that emerged was massive, easily twice the size of any normal alpha, with fur black as pitch and eyes that burned crimson. The red-eyed wolf from her nightmare stood before her, very real and very close. Luna's cries intensified. The wolf's attention snapped to the crib, its lips peeling back from fangs that gleamed like daggers. Lyra's mark exploded with heat. She spread her arms wide, blocking his path completely. "You'll have to go through me first." The wolf's laugh was a terrible, rumbling sound. "With pleasure." The wolf lunged. Every instinct Lyra had ever learned screamed at her to run, to cower, to make herself small and invisible. Years of conditioning tried to drag her down, to remind her that she was nothing, that she was weak, that Omegas didn't fight alphas. But Luna was behind her. And running had never saved anyone. Lyra didn't move. Instead, she thrust her marked arm forward, her hand splayed wide. The wolf's jaws were inches from her face when the mark ignited. Light erupted from her palm, not the flickering glow from the council chamber, but a torrent of pure silver-blue radiance that filled the entire nursery like a star had been born inside it. The wolf's momentum carried it forward into the blast, and its triumphant snarl turned into a shriek of agony. The darkness clinging to its fur began to burn away like fog under sunlight. Lyra felt the power flowing through her. Ancient, vast, and absolutely certain of its purpose. This was what the Silver Moon bloodline had been created for. Not violence, but purification. Not destruction, but healing. She saw past the corrupted wolf form to the rotten core beneath, dark magic festering like an open wound, twisting Mordain into something monstrous. The light dove deeper, stripping away layers of corruption, burning through curses and blood oaths until there was nothing left but a man. Mordain collapsed to the floor, naked and powerless, his red eyes fading to ordinary brown. He tried to rise, tried to shift, but his wolf was gone. Severed. The light had cut the darkness from him like a surgeon's blade. Lyra stood over him, her mark still blazing, her entire body haloed in silver luminescence. She'd never felt powerful before. She'd never felt like anything but a burden. But now she felt like the moon goddess herself had poured divine fire into her veins. The nursery doors exploded inward. Ronan burst through with 24 guards at his back, weapons drawn, ready for battle. He froze, taking in the scene, Mordain crumpled and defeated, Luna safe in her crib, and Lyra standing at the center of it all, glowing like a fallen star. Lyra, he breathed, or transforming his features. The light began to fade, slowly, reluctantly. Lyra swayed, suddenly exhausted, and Ronan was there to catch her before she fell. He held her against his chest, his heart hammering beneath her cheek. "You did it," he murmured. "You saved us all." The guard stared, then one by one, they dropped to their knees. Not out of duty or protocol, but out of genuine reverence for what they'd witnessed. "All hail the Silver Queen," someone whispered. The word spread like wildfire. "All hail the Silver Queen." Lyra looked up at Ronan, tears streaming down her face, and finally, believed she was worthy of standing beside him.